Hi, I'm Danny Johnson. Welcome to the Danny Johnson Show. Hey, this week is a special week. If you watched the show last Wednesday, the spiritual equipping that we did, we let you know that last night, Hanukkah, was the beginning of Hanukkah. So today, technically, this is the first day of Hanukkah. And so here on this Monday, I wanted to take you to a place where I could talk to you about a miracle that I hope I'm going to be able to talk to you about without totally losing it. This time of year is always a very special time for me personally. And I hope that what I'm going to share with you will inspire you, will build your faith, encourage you. I tell you about a time in my life which was probably of the absolute worst, most devastating moment up to that time. I was 21 years old and had experienced the deepest form of rejection and the most painful thing I had experienced as a young adult. Before I get into that, I want to just say to you, I don't know where you're at right now in your life, where your heart is, where your mind is, what things you might be struggling with, some fears you might have. I promise you today's message has a chance of being able to help you walk through those particular fears. Yeah. Exactly 28 years ago today, I had faced something really horrible. You see, just months before this, I had met a man and married him after only knowing him for 7 days. That was June 16th of 1990. He was a guy he was gorgeous, and he was totally out of my league. Sadly, I was such a lost person. I was such a mess that I was actually engaged to somebody else. Now, I know that you might be like, Danny, oh my gosh, I can't believe you did that. Hey, listen, if you actually got real and honest with some of the things you've done in your life, other people might say the same thing. I can't believe that you did that. And I know there's a lot of people who have never done anything really bad. I'm not that person. I've done so many really socially unacceptable things, religiously unacceptable things. But I'm a true testimony of the miracle of love. The miracle of forgiveness. I honestly should be dead. You see, if you've been a part of the show for any length of time, you've heard parts of my story, right? I grew up on welfare, pregnant at 17, horribly judged by church people. Was badly abused from the time I was 3 till I was 16. I was molested from ages 3 to 16. I moved out of the house because of that. I was physically abused, violently physically abused, grabbed by the hair, drug across a room, picked up by the throat to be pushed up a wall, to be cursed at, kicked across the room by a man who weighed 350 pounds with a size 16 shoe. I grew up in a very devastating, very fearful. I don't know if you saw the walkthrough of my, the place where I grew up. We had done a show a while back, taking you kind of through those places and some of those memories, and did that not to like get on a soapbox, but to inspire you that it doesn't matter where you start, but what matters is what you do today and where you end up. And so I made really bad choices, right? I made really bad choices. I had given my first baby up, put her in the hands of another family that raised her, which was like the worst decision of my entire life. I ended up doing drugs. I did start a business when I was 19, not because I thought I could, but because I knew I could fail. And on the failure equation, when I did the math in my head, it was like, yeah, okay, if I fail a millionaire's income by 90%, I'll still be making a 6-figure income, and I would never be able to do that with no education, and I'm stupid, I'm dyslexic, I don't fit in, all of these things, that you might think some of the same things about yourself. And so here, now I'm 21, I meet and marry a guy that I know for 7 days, and within 30 days, I catch him in bed with his best friend's wife. So he had an affair, and his best friend and his wife had only been married for 2 weeks. How's that? He and I had been married for 30 days, and yet there was the first affair. After our first week of marriage, he actually brought another woman to the apartment and said, hey, would you mind if, we have a threesome? I'm like, no, yes, I mind. I mind a lot. No. And so like right away, and mind you, friend, I was not innocent in this. The fact is that God tried to tell me not to marry. He tried to stop me from making this decision. And I was just so stubborn and I was so bent because I wanted this person, because somehow he was so gorgeous. He looked like he was all well put together. He had a Corvette. He had a motorcycle. He had an apartment in downtown English Bay of Vancouver, Canada, right? So, I mean, he was just like, wow. I mean, it was kind of like this Bon Jovi kind of guy, long curly hair, green eyes. And so for some reason, the fact that he paid any attention to me made me feel valued. And I had not felt valued up to that point. And the sad thing is that I was making a lot of money at that time and didn't even realize that perhaps that had something to do with it, but it didn't. I mean, that it did. It had something to do with it, but I didn't think that. I just was like completely swept off my feet. But little did I know, the guy was totally broke, and now we're like doing this honeymoon, a continuous honeymoon on my credit cards. And he's like, the business deal hasn't closed yet. I just kept hearing all this stuff. He had big talk, but yet no money. And he'd be like, he's like, man, I feel so bad. That deal hasn't closed yet, and I feel so bad that we're kind of living off of your income and da. So bottom line is that he wouldn't live in California, which is where I was living. He lived in Canada. I was definitely not moving to the rain, not as a California girl. And at that time, right before that, I had lived in Portland, Oregon for about 9 months and gained 50 pounds in 3 months and knew that the rain was not the best thing for Danny Johnson. That wasn't my married name. Anyway, so bottom line is that I end up forgiving him for that first affair. And so he comes up with this idea that we're going to move to the big island of Hawaii. And I'm like, I'm not a Hawaii person. I'm not a beach person. That's just not my thing. And so then I end up just, conceding. And he says, it's got the largest ranch in the country. So it's a horse ranch. And I'm like, awesome. I will go and I will buy a horse. And I'll stay up in the mountains. He likes the beach. Okay, whatever. I'll compromise. So we end up moving. And yeah, I ended up getting embezzled at the time of moving. And by the way, I found him in another affair. That was awesome. Yeah, he was caught in another affair, and I actually left early to go get him. He went to Hawaii first. He was going to set up a house for us. And there we are. I fly over there, and I'm terrified. And this is August 2nd that I flew over there to find him, to confront him about another affair. Awesome. So long and the short of it is, I forgive him again, and we end up finding a place to live. We actually rent a room from another couple, and it seems like things are going fine, except for the fact that he still has no money. We're now in August. We're now living in Hawaii, which was like super expensive. I bought my horse. Yeah, are you drawing the picture here? And so then he locates a new deal. He was a golfer, and he met a Japanese business investor, and he found someone that wanted to invest in his idea. So now he's going to go to Japan ahead of time, get us set up in a home there, and then I'm supposed to follow a month later. Yeah, same pitch. Second time, I fall for it. I wasn't very smart. So I get a phone call, end of October, telling me that, hey, you're on your own, kid. I'm like, wait, what? Excuse me? What exactly do you mean? It's like end of October, sometime November. Yeah, I found somebody else. I'm living with a model, and we're done. I'm like, okay, I'm in Hawaii. My business just got embezzled in the month of August. I have no income. He has no income. This is awesome. This sucks. We've racked up a bunch of credit card debt on my credit cards, not his. We just used mine. Okay, so I'm like devastated, right? So I go into a deep depression. I start smoking weed like crazy. I'm now sleeping around. I'm being a fool in every way, right? And I gained a bunch of weight. I had ordered this weight loss program, and I'm, depressed, confused. I purchased this weight loss program. It's around November 26th, right? So just, last week. And I get a message, I get a phone call, the woman telling me that my check had bounced. I'm like, that's impossible. I've had some trouble with this bank. So I call the bank, and they tell me that my balance is $2.03. Could you imagine hearing that? I think I have $5,000 in the bank, because that's what I had in the bank. And they tell me I have $2.03. I'm like, that's impossible. That's absolutely impossible. And I remember dropping the phone and writing $2.03 over and over again, so much that it went through several different pieces of paper. Hello? It's like a few days before the 1st of December, and what's due on the 1st of December? Rent. So I have to have a conversation on the 1st of December, and I'm like, first of all, I then give the woman my credit card. It was declined. The next one declined. Then I had 5 of them. They were all declined. So I ended up calling the credit card companies. The limit had been increased and maxed out. I have no income. I owe a woman $125. I owe rent, which was $500 to rent this room, coming up on December 1st. I have a huge problem. I don't have a job. And this is low season in Hawaii. The high season starts the last 2 weeks of December. The lowest season of the year is between Thanksgiving and Christmas. And so no one's hiring. Nobody. Not to mention the Gulf War had just started. So the hotels were at 35% occupancy. So people were being laid off left and right. Like, this is the worst job market that I could ever be looking for a job. I don't think that I can be in business because I'm brand new to town. I've bounced all these checks. Credit card is maxed out. I'm 50 pounds overweight. I'm in big trouble, right? Actually, at that time, I was 25 pounds overweight. So here it is. I want you to think about this. Have you ever had like a really bad day? Have you ever had a bad week? Have you ever had a bad month? This was that time. So my suicidal childhood, right? I battled with suicide my whole childhood, and now here I am. I am more suicidal than I've ever been. And the people who were renting the room just said, I'm sorry, Danny. We need that rent. And if you cannot pay it, we have to find somebody else that can, because our mortgage depends on that $500 a month. So I'm really sorry, but there's nothing we can do about it. We have to find somebody else to rent this room. Whew. Okay. Oh my gosh. Okay. Wow. I want you to think about that for a minute. I call some family, my aunt, in fact, and I asked her, I said, please, I told her what happened. She's like, well, I'm sorry. There's nothing I could do to help you. My aunt had a lot of money. She inherited my grandmother's, so all of my grandmother's belongings and all of that real estate that my grandmother had. And then my uncle who had died, she kind of inherited all of that. And she also worked really hard her whole life. So she had money. She absolutely had money. And I asked her, I said, rather than sending me because she always sent me a Christmas present every year. Please don't send me a Christmas present. Please just send me the cast instead. And she's like, you weren't on my Christmas list this year. I was like, okay, so please don't send me a card, but maybe you could just send me, the cash that you would pay for the card. She's like, I wasn't sending you a card either. Okay. I will never forget putting everything I belonged in the back of my little Hyundai, little gray 4-door Hyundai, and driving nowhere. Just driving. Endlessly bawling my eyes out and realizing I am worse than my parents. My parents were drug addicts, but they always had a house. They always had a roof over their head. Yeah, they raised us on welfare, but we always had something, even if it was just bread and margarine and garlic salt. At least my parents had bed to sleep in. And I remember hitting such rock bottom and feeling so anxious and terrified and thinking, this is it. My life is never going to change. Everybody I've ever loved has stabbed me in the back, has screwed me over, stolen from me. Every person I've ever trusted has not been trustworthy. Every person who has said or should have protected me, watched out for me, has harmed me. And then here came the voices. You're a loser. You're worthless. You're a failure. You're nothing. You're nobody. You're never going to be anybody. You might as well just kill yourself. Look what you've done with your life. You're such a loser that you gave your baby up for adoption. You're such a loser that your high school sweetheart hates your guts. You're such a loser you couldn't even stay married. You're such a failure you couldn't even keep a man faithful to you. You're such an idiot. You're fat. Who's ever going to want you? Your parents even hated you. In fact, the man who really is your father wanted nothing to do with you. He gave you up for adoption. You're such an idiot. You should have never been born. You see, you were supposed to be an abortion. Psh, look what happens when they live. They turn into a worthless piece of crap like you. Man, Brad, have you ever heard voices like that? Have you ever had your mind attacking you? Have you ever had like missiles being shot at your heart and no physical person is doing it? Like you're doing it to yourself? It was almost as though it was another person talking to me and telling me and reminding me of all of my failures and pointing out how no one has ever loved me. Pointing out, where's your mom? Your mom disowned you when you got pregnant. Your own mother doesn't even love you. Like, wow. Like, how worthless do you have to be that your own mother who birthed you doesn't love you, but hates you, right? How worthless do you have to be that your own father doesn't want you? All the reminders of, you're trash. You're good for nothing. You're only good for someone's sex toy. That's all you are, is someone's sex toy. Look how filthy you are. You're so filthy that a man touched you when you were 3. All of these voices, friend, it just pounded me. Until I had done the unthinkable thing. I had done a line of cocaine at a party on Christmas Eve. I had eventually gotten a job as a cocktail waitress, which was a complete miracle. Complete miracle. Shouldn't have been able to get that job. I had no experience. And for some reason, the manager took a chance on me. So I'm at a party. It's December 24th. I'm in Kona, Hawaii. And the bartender invites me out to do a line of cocaine, along with the head waitress. I did the most unthinkable thing. I said I would never be like my parents. I said I would never do cocaine. I would never smoke weed. I was stoned out of my mind. I had smoked so much pot that day, I don't even know how I was walking. I had drank so much alcohol that night, I don't even know how I was walking. I stumbled myself out to that little VW Bug, the little powder yellow VW Bug, shared the passenger seat with my coworker. She opened up the glove box. I nailed down, plugged up one nose as I saw my parents do when I was in high school, snorted that line. And I had exhilaration fill my body, went back, danced, have no idea who I slept with that night, nor do I know where. The party extended to a beach on Kua Bay Beach on the Big Island of Hawaii the next day. It's 10 o'clock in the morning. And all I remember is going and asking, hey, where did I get some more of that cocaine? Friend, this thing gripped me. Oh my gosh, it's like it owned me. It was like something that attached itself to me. It was almost like it was speaking on my behalf. Where do I get some more of that cocaine? I gotta have some more of that cocaine. And I went each one of my coworkers asking for them, like, what are you talking about? And then Jessica comes over, she's like, dude, no one knows we did that last night. Shut the blank up. What are you doing? I'm like, dude, I will give anything. I had just offered, actually, my body. I just literally offered to a man my body if he would give me more cocaine. He's like, dude, I don't have any and I'm married. I'll see what I could do. I went to the cook who was like, just, ugh. I don't want to talk about the cook who was mean to me, actually, when I worked with him. And here I offered him my body for more cocaine. He says, I'll see what I could do. So I got frustrated because there was no cocaine. And at 10 o'clock in the morning on December 25th, I went and I dove under a wave. I came up and I heard a voice say, pick up your mat and walk. I didn't know it at the time, but that is in the book of John, chapter 5, verse 8. I didn't know that, where he says, to a man who is sitting at a pool, arise, take up your mat and walk. Instantly, friend, here's the miracle. There's many. The fiending for the cocaine, the just strong urge that I was so much ready to give my body and anything that I had for another line of cocaine, left instantly. Pick up your mat and walk. And it was almost like I was in a trance. I went over to my beach mat, right? Pick up your mat and walk. I went over to my beach mat. I rolled it up and I started hiking over to my car, which was about an hour-long hike through black lava. And on that hike, again, the desire for the drug left. All of a sudden, I had clarity in my mind. And on this hike back there, it was almost like I was in a trance. I get in my car and I start driving to the beach about 45 minutes away that I had been living on. And a conversation began in my head. You're a loser. You're a failure. You're nothing. You're never going to beat anything. Why don't you just kill yourself? And then here was this other voice. This is not what I have intended for your life. You know better than to be hanging out with who you've been hanging out with. You know it's not helpful for the good life that you want. It's time to step up, rise up, and do something great with your life. That was the voice of my God. That was the voice of my real Father in heaven, who moved the heavens and the earth to put me in my mother's womb, just like he did for you. The miracle is that here in all of my filth, an adulteress, a druggie, a drunk, I had almost sold my body for drugs, which means I almost became a prostitute. And I had also almost became a woman of pornography, meaning I had gotten offered through a bikini contest. When you're homeless, you'll do anything for money. So I had gotten offered. I did a bikini contest at 180 pounds. 2 other contestants who were perfect, and then there was me, and I had to do whatever it took to win that thing. It was $100. That was at least going to buy some food. And I got offered a penthouse photo shoot. If that's what you want to call it. Meaning I got the offer for a one-day $25,000 shoot to be in Penthouse magazine as a centerfold. So I almost said yes to that. Why? I was $35,000 in debt. I had no money. I had no way to fix this problem I was in. I was homeless. So here, look at our God. That even in the midst of the things that you think about yourself, how much you hate yourself, how much you've destroyed your life, in the midst of all the huge mistakes and failures that you have produced all by yourself, and probably the biggest failure is that you think you're a victim in it, as I was. Like, oh, my husband left me. Oh, my parents disowned me. And oh, you know, my high school sweetheart's parents like manipulated me to give my baby for adoption. And the people that have my baby won't allow me to see her. I mean, I was nothing but a victim on all sides. You know, the man that I trusted that taught me business, he embezzled. He stole it from me. Do you understand? My friends have abandoned me. I was a victim, an absolute victim in every way. And here I destroyed myself. And so even in all this filth and all this disgust, look at who our God is. The miracle of his love. The miracle of his mercy. The miracle to overlook my transgressions and to reach down from heaven and to talk to a woman who was so that miracle of salvation, the miracle of mercy, the miracle of forgiveness. I didn't deserve to be forgiven. I deserved to be judged. I deserved to die. All the people that I had hurt out of all of my anger and all of my victimization, taking no responsibility, but just dying inside from bitterness and unforgiveness and resentment. And yet he forgave me. And he began to cleanse me. Pick up your mat and walk. He allowed me to walk away from my excuses. He allowed me to walk away from my self-hate. He allowed me to walk away from my gluttony and my addiction to food and my addiction to drugs and alcohol. He allowed me to walk away from my addiction of hatred towards others. He gave me a chance to start a brand new life. I didn't hear some sermon. I didn't get this message in a church. I'd been so badly wounded by church people, and I hated them with a passion. I was terrified to listen to this voice. But it was the voice of love, which to me is an amazing, powerful miracle. 4 days later, that same voice guided me to start a business from the trunk of my car in a payphone booth. The first 4 days, I made $2,000. The next 30 days, and I worked 30 hours because I was working full-time as a cocktail waitress, I made $6,540. The very next month, I made over $10,000. The next month, over $14,000. By the end of my 10th month, I made over $80,000 in a single month. I made $250,000 my very first year. All part-time, mind you, starting from the trunk of my car in a payphone booth. And by the end of my second year, I had made my first million. That's by the time I was 23. Today, as a multimillionaire, all the profits of our business, and I don't take a salary, goes straight to taking care of the homeless, the poor, the orphan, the sick, the widow. That's the miracle. That he loves no matter what we've done. And no matter what man has done. He wants to deliver you. And I believe he wants to deliver you from whatever it is that you're doing to yourself, whether you're being a victim and that's what you're doing to yourself, or you're destroying your life like I did. He wants to deliver you from that. And this week, I believe, the week of Hanukkah is the week for great miracles. So I felt it was important for you and I to spend this time thinking about a miracle. The fact that I'm alive is a miracle. The fact that he spoke to me in such a low, terrible place is such a miracle. And I believe he's speaking to you right now. So I say to you, pick up your mat and walk. Thanks for joining us today.
If this episode was an encouragement to you, go to DannyJohnson.com and share it with your friends now. You never know who else needs to hear it. This has been The Danny Johnson Show. Join us every weekday at 7 a.m. for more insights that will help you get to the life you've always wanted.